Many Jews today feel the need for a Jewish renaissance. People are searching for a more vital and authentic mode of Jewish expression, and more than ever we need to shift not only physically but spiritually out of exile mode. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
Some religious Jews rely on the Heter Mechira, the technical sale of the land to a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael during the Shmita year, whilst others claim that it is forbidden to do so. What is the Rav's position?
There are in fact many issues regarding the Heter Mechira which need to be discussed and which we probably will discuss in future interviews, but for today I wish to focus on the issue of Lo Techanem. But first I will explain some of the basic assumptions underpinning the Heter Mechira. The Heter Mechira refers to the technical sale of the land in Eretz Yisrael to a non-Jew for a period of 1 year, and it is based on two al-halachic assumptions, and these are assumptions because they're not agreed to by all. Assumption number one is that where land in Eretz Yisrael legally belongs to a non-Jew, the produce, the fruit and other manner of produce that are grown on this land do not have the status of Kedushat Shvi'ith. The fruit, the produce is not considered to have a special level of Kedusha, of holiness about it, and therefore can be sold and bought in the usual manner and can be consumed in the usual manner without any of the particular halachot that pertain to produce that does have Kedushat Shvi'ith. This is an assumption because it is not agreed to by all the Posakim. 500 years ago already in Tzfat there was a major mahloket about this between the Beit Yosef and the Mabit, and to this day this mahloket has not really been resolved. I will just mention here that the Hazon Ish, for example, was of the view that the halacha is like the Mabit, and that even if the produce was grown in a field that technically belongs to a non-Jew, the produce still has the status of Kedushat Shvi'ith. The other assumption is that if land legally belongs to a non-Jew, land in Eretz Yisrael, it may be worked during the Shmita year because it does not belong to a Jew. In other words, not only is the isur of the issue of the kedusha, the level of kedusha of the produce, different when the land belongs to a non-Jew, but the actual working of the land becomes permissible when the land belongs to a non-Jew, and this too is an halachic assumption which is agreed to by some, but not all of the posakim. Here too, for example, the Hazon Ish was of the view that even if the land belongs to a non-Jew, and even those who claim that the produce does not have the kedusha of shvi'it, does not pertain to that produce, nevertheless the land itself may not be worked during that Shmita year. So these two assumptions which underlie and underpin the Heter Mechira are not at all clear, and that has to be understood. Another thing that we need to understand and know is that this is not an ideological debate, or at least it should not be an ideological debate. There are many people who believe that the Heter Mechira is an invention of the Mafdal or the Mizrahi or Bnei Akiva or something like that, or Rav Kook perhaps, and these people apparently are not aware of the fact that the first year in which a widespread use was made of this halachic device, the Heter Mechira, was in the year Tafresh Mem Tet, the Shmita that took place in 1889, whereas Rav Kook came to Eretz Yisrael in Tafresh Samech Daled, 1904, and had nothing to do with Rav Kook. So the concept itself is not new, and it has nothing to do with religious Zionism or the so-called national religious ideology or approach to Torah Judaism. These are very serious Torah matters, halachic discussions, and they have to be approached with an open mind and with an attempt to achieve a true understanding and an objective and rational understanding and approach to these issues. The first Rabbanim, for example, to give the green light for the Heter Mechira, and the original Heter Mechira of Tafresh Memtet 1889 were Arav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector and the Yeshuot Malko, and later the Rav Kook followed in their footsteps. On the other hand, there were those who opposed already the original use of this device, such as the Netziv, and later the Chazon Ish, and others were opposed. And one of the major reasons for the argument regarding the Heter Mechira, and that's what I want to concentrate on right now, is the issue of Lo Techanem. The Torah speaks about the non-Jews in Eretz Yisrael, and it says that we are to relate to them in such a manner that the Torah describes as Lo Techanem. Do not allow them to find favor in your eyes. That is a literal translation. And Hazal explained that one of the ramifications of this statement is, and this is a miswat lo ta'aseh, we have to understand, this is an isur min ha-Torah, lo techonem. This is not midrabanan, it is not something from the sages, it is not a humra, it is something which is min ha-Torah. Lo techonem means, amongst other things, so say Chazal, that one may not sell land to non-Jews in Eretz Yisrael. The reason for this, there's more than one reason, but one of the major reasons, says the Rambam, is the idea, as the Torah itself explains, and the Rambam amplifies, that we are to establish here in Eretz Yisrael, Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, we are to establish here a country, a state, a society, where the ideas and truths of the Torah form the basis of our society, and people who believe in other false ideologies and religions can only water down such truth, Torah truth-based society, and therefore they endanger the entire enterprise. Another aspect of this halakha is that by allowing non-Jews to purchase land in Eretz Yisrael, we are of course inviting these people to reside here, allowing them to take up the precious space of Eretz Yisrael, which belongs exclusively to the Jewish people. And this too has nothing to do with a Zionist or a right-wing attitude or ideology. The Chazon Ish, who certainly could not be considered a Zionist or a supporter of the Mizrahi or anything like that, was vehemently opposed to the Heter Mechira precisely for this reason, because one of the reasons was he felt that this was a clear violation of the Yisur Lo Techanem, and he writes explicitly in his halachic writings that not only are we not allowed to sell the land to such people, to non-Jews, he says all such people are to be driven out of Eretz Yisrael. He writes this in a very explicit and unequivocal way. So these are very real Torah issues which we have to understand. And those who, on the other hand, took the opposite opinion, the opposite position, namely that the Heter Mechira is possible and does not violate the Isur of Lo Techanem by selling land for 1 year in a technical sale to a non-Jew, those who held this opinion were of the view that there were different explanations or reasons for adopting this position. One position was, and again we're limiting our discussion right now to Lo Techanem, one claim was that Lo Techanem does not apply to Yishmaelim, to Muslims, because according to many poskim, technically speaking at least, Islam is not a form of idol worship. That is not to say that it is a true religion. Obviously no Torah Jew could make such a claim, but it is not a religion in which they worship idols. They believe in one God who created all things, etc. And technically speaking, that is true. Whether it is correct to say that therefore Islam is not considered Avodah Zarah, or is not considered a form of religion which is entirely banned and prohibited according to the Torah, that's a separate discussion which I am deliberately not entering into at this moment. The idea, the notion that Lo Techanem does not apply to Yishmaelim, and therefore we can sell the land in a technical sale for 1 year to such Yishmaelim in order to circumvent the issue of Shmita, this idea is based essentially on the words of one posek, the Bah, in his commentary to the Tur in Hoshe Mishpat, Siman Resh Mem Tet. And I wish to read to you a few words from the Tur and the Beit Yosef and the Bach regarding this issue. The Tur, I should say, writes, Asur liten matanat hinam lo'oved avodah zarah. It is forbidden to give a free gift of anything, not just land, to an idol worshipper, literally, a person who worships a foreign, false religion. Aval mutar liten le'ger toshav. But it is mutar to give such a gift to a ger toshav, a non-Jew who has rejected all forms of false religion and worship, believes in the one God, believes in the truth of the Torah, but he is a non-Jew and he doesn't wish to convert, and he keeps the 7 Noahide laws, Sheva Misvot B'nei Noach. Such a person, given permission by the Beit Din in Eretz Yisrael to reside in Eretz Yisrael, is called a Ger Toshav, and to such a person one can give such a gift, says the Tur. The Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, writes explicitly, and I quote, Lo la pukei Ishmaelim, ela la pukei Ger Toshav. In other words, when the Tur writes that is not permissible to give such a gift to a Oved Avodah Zarah, he does not mean to say, says the Beit Yosef, the Tur does not mean to imply that Ishmaeli, a Muslim, is not included in this prohibition, but rather he means to say only a Ger Toshav is one is allowed to give such a gift to, whereas anyone who is not a Ger Toshav, one may not do so. And this is in fact what the Shulchan Aruch writes in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Resh Mem Tet. In the Bach, we find that he quotes from the Beit Yosef, and he asks the question, if it's true, he's actually asking a question against what the Beit Yosef writes. He says, if it's true that the Tur wrote that it is asur to give a gift to an Oved Avodah Zarah, to literally a person who worships idols or some other false religion, and he means to say only that a Ger Toshav one may do so, why did he use that term? Because one could understand that this means that Ishmaelim, Muslims who are not of the Avodah Zarah in some technical sense, one may give such a gift to. And that is only half of what the Bach says, because then the Bach goes on to say that it is his view, and this is confirmed by the fact that we find in the earliest printings of the Tur, that the halakha in question reads as follows: Asur liten matnat hinam. It is forbidden to give a gift, a free gift for no reason, not by way of payment for some service. It doesn't say le'oved avodah zarah, it says legoy or le'nochri. This appears, for example, in the earliest printings of the Tur that we have before us. And the Bach says it was censored and changed from goy to oved avodah zarah because of the sensibilities of the Christian censors in Europe in the early days of printing of Jewish books. And then the Bach goes on to say, and I'd like to show you the continuation of the Bach here, which I've highlighted in blue. From this point down to the end of the Bach here, it was missing from most of the printed versions of the Bach for the last few centuries, so that many poskim, including Rav Kook, were misled, at least for a time, by the fact that they didn't see the rest of what the Bach says. It was what the Bach actually says. In practice is that this isur of Lo Techanem, this prohibition does refer to Ishmaelim, and it is asur to give a matnat chinam, a gift to any non-Jew who is not a ger toshav. The Bach agrees entirely with the Beit Yosef. He's not disagreeing. He's simply pointing out that the reason for this this particular language used by the Tur was not in fact that the Tur used this language at all, but rather it was an act of censorship. And as the Tur was censored, now today we know that the Bach also was censored, because in the original printings of the Bach, where we have the entire text, the Bach goes on to say that the Beit Yosef is correct, but the reason the language of the Tur is such that it speaks about Oved Avodah Zarah was an act of censorship, but really it applies to any non-Jew. So the claim, but the second half of what the Bach wrote was absent, was missing from the texts before many of the poskim for the last centuries, and only in the last generation or so, about 25 or 30 years ago, new printings of the Tur and the Bach have been produced based on the original uncensored versions, and today we see that this idea, this notion that the Bach was of the opinion that Ishmaelim are not included in the purview of this Isur of Lo Techanem is entirely spurious. And therefore, we end up with the interesting result that all the Posukim are in agreement, all the early Posukim certainly are in agreement that the Isur of Lo Techanem, which is a major factor in the discussion regarding the Heter Mechira for Shmita, the Isur of Lo Techanem applies to all non-Jews in Eretz Yisrael, as Posukim like the Netziv and the Chazon Ish and many others have pointed out. The question, of course, is what does one do, therefore, during Shnat HaShmita, in order to live up to the halacha and the requirements of Shnat HaShmita without transgressing the Isur of Lo Techanem. And this we will discuss, B'ezrat Hashem, in another interview.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Berkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.